Hello, peoples of the internet, and welcome back to That Swedish Guy 99. And today, we are doing another random SCP video. And today, we're going to do SCP-3341. Object Class Euclid. Special Containment Procedures. SCP-3341-A and SCP-3341-B are housed in the Eastern Province Settlement Zone and Ogaden Settlement Zone, respectively, in collaboration with the governments of Saudi Arabia and Ethiopia. Mobile Task Force Stigma-9, evolved from naturally occurring gears, levers, and pulleys, is dispatched to Ogaden Settlement Zone to invalidate all propaganda spread by SCP-3341-B1 and or the Cogwork Orthodox Church. If you don't know who those guys are, I think they're a part of the group of special interests that worship the machine god or something. I think, but I'm not sure. Instances of SCP-3341-B1 are to be regarded as hostile entities holding a de facto object class of Keter. Mobile Task Force Gamma-4, the Icon class, is to be mobilized in East Africa, tasked to combat SCP-3341-B1 instances. While capture of live SCP-3341-B instances is preferable, termination is permitted. Captured SCP-3341-B1 instances are to be kept at Site 368. If applicable, SCP-3341-B1 instances are to have non-vital mechanical implants removed and undergo rehabilitation. Said rehabilitations program will consist of literature authorized by MTF, some, I'm guessing, a Greek letter -9, and a modification of program Arduinosis 9001, which I don't know what that is, but it's a link to some other SCP article. SCP-3341-C is outside of Foundation jurisdiction and is currently within the jurisdiction of the Organization for the Reclamation of Islamic Artifacts, or basically, I think it's the Saudi Arabian government's version of the SCP, of the SCP organization. And yeah, so, but in this case, I think they're working together. I'm not sure. Intelligence reports regarding SCP-3341-C are to be obtained from leaked ORIA sources, with emphasis on the methods behind ORIA's suzerainty over SCP-3341. Interaction between SCP-3341-A, SCP-3341-B, SCP-3341-B1, and SCP-3341-C is not permitted. Description: SCP-3341 is a sapient omnivorous mammalian species which undergoes metamorphosis into a humanoid appearance as part of its life cycle. It is endemic to areas within the Arabian Peninsula, Horn of Africa, and Iranian plateau. Due to different socio-political contexts, SCP-3341 communities in the three regions possess distinct cultural differences from one another, and are given the following sub-designations for each categorization. SCP-3341-A SCP-3341-B, SCP-3341-B1, and SCP-3341-C. All juvenile SCP-3341 specimens possess one arm and one leg, each with each limb having 5 digits. SCP-3341's feet share notable similarities with those of species belonging to the family Leporidae, or the rabbit species. Rabbit family, I guess. Allowing SCP-3341 to move via jumping. The average distance traveled by a juvenile SCP-3341 specimen within a single leap is 4 meters. The head is roughly hemispheric in shape and consists of one eye, one nostril, one ear, and one mouth. The nostril and mouth are usually placed at the extremity of the head. No hair is present in juvenile SCP-3341 instances. Juvenile SCP-3341 specimens exhibit a unique form of sexual dimorphism. Male juvenile SCP-3341 specimens resemble the right side of the human body, whereas female juvenile SCP-3341 specimens resemble the left side of the human body. Metamorphosis of SCP-3341 involves one male juvenile SCP-3341 instance and one female juvenile SCP-3341 instance who will merge their bodies, memories, and consciousness together. The process is optional and requires mutual consent from the participants involved. Courtship is primarily centered on the measurement of a potential mate's height, wherein partners of similar heights tend to have higher probability of successful metamorphosis. Well, that makes sense, since if they're gonna become one instance, then they'll have to be sort of equal height, so it won't look weird, I'm guessing. A larger difference in height between partners is held to be positively associated with increased risks during metamorphosis, causing a longer period of metamorphosis, deformity of the adult instance, or death of one or both of the participants. That doesn't sound very fun. During metamorphosis, the partners will align themselves such as the male partner is lying to the right side of the female partner. Once aligned, the partners will rub their bodies against each other to create lacerations wherein their flesh will be conjoined. The two instances' mouths, cloacae, parts of their skeletons, and internal organs along the torso will merge together. Other bodily changes include the growth of body hair and shortening of both their feet. The process usually requires 1 week, typically taking place in an isolated enclosed environment. Due to the long duration and energy required, juvenile specimens tend to consume large quantities of food prior to metamorphosis. In terms of physical appearance, a typical adult SCP-3341 specimen is mostly identical to the average human. Particularly, alterations to the adult specimen's legs have reduced its jumping capacity to that of an average human. A significant difference is that an adult SCP-3341 specimen's reproductive system is entirely internal. A typical adult SCP-3341 instance possesses the memories and consciousness of the juvenile instances involved in its metamorphosis, and regards itself to be a singular entity. Following metamorphosis, adult instances will take on a double name consisting of the names of both juvenile instances. Regardless of socio-cultural group, SCP-3341 instances, excluding members of SCP-3341-B1, adhere to a class system based on its life cycle. Juvenile SCP-3341 instances typically serve as military, manufactural, and agricultural roles. Adult SCP-3341 instances typically serve as priests, literati, so people who, well, smart people, diplomats, and community leaders. While juvenile instances do not wear clothes, adult instances tend to don clothing capable of concealing the entire body. Differences among socio-cultural groups of SCP-3341 is based on mythology and socio-political context, as detailed in the following executive summaries. So here I'll have to take off one glove since it's kind of hard to interact with the mousepad with this on. I do have a mouse, but it would be a bit hard to move it around in the air here. So, SCP-3341-A denotes the socio-cultural group of SCP-3341 instances who traditionally reside in the Eastern Province and Riyadh regions of Saudi Arabia, Al-Wusta and Dhofar Governorates of Oman, and the Emirate of Abu Dhabi. SCP-3341-A's creation myth alleges that the two legendary progenitors of its species were molded from day of by a jinn, I think that's jinn, named Sheikh, who admired humanity. The legendary progenitors merged their flesh together on Sheikh's command, and Sheikh was not mentioned in the creation myth following that point. The unified progenitor was left to its own devices and eventually gave birth to offsprings, thus propagating its species. Prior to mass relocation in 1951 CE, SCP-3341-A communities were publicly identified as Bedouin tribes, whereas juvenile instances were only allowed freedom of movement at night. SCP-3341-A's nomadic practices were supposedly intended to minimize contact and suspicion with human settlements. Foundation efforts to contain SCP-3341-A have reduced restrictions to SCP-3341-A's freedom of movement. So, if you don't know what a Bedouin is, it's an Arab nomadic tribe who, well, it says here in the footnotes, Arab nomadic tribes who historically reside in desert regions of North Africa, the Arabian Peninsula, Iraq, and the Levant. I had heard the name Bedouin before, but I didn't remember what it was, what it meant. Alright, so on to SCP-3341-B, which denotes the social cultural group of SCP-3341 instances who traditionally reside in Ogaden. While SCP-3341-B's creation myth also describes Sheikh as the creator of SCP-3341, more emphasis is placed on exodus from Sheikh and its realm of Awaz. According to SCP-3341-B instances, metamorphosis is commonly interpreted as means to stand united against obstacles. While the Foundation has contact with SCP-3341-B instances since 1953, contact was lost following the fall of the Ethiopian Empire in 1974. Foundation assets were expelled, and GRU Division P was invited to study SCP-3341-B instead, supposedly as part of an experiment to induct non-human sapient species to communism. I think the GRU Division might be from the Soviet SCP program, but I'm not sure, because they had like their own SCP organization. This lasted until 1993, wherein the Foundation re-established a presence in the Horn of Africa. Many SCP-3341-B instances term the period under Group P administration as the Children's Dictatorship. In the footnotes it says that it's termed due to adult SCP-3341-B instances being a significant target of prosecution during that period. This is due to adult instances, traditional adoption of social roles that are frowned upon by communist movements. Characterized by cultural repression, which in the footnotes it says, for instance, adult SCP-3341-B instances were regularly forced to engage in physical labor alongside their juvenile counterparts. Societal fluctuations during and after the children's dictatorship have resulted in numerous resistance movements amongst SCP-3341-B, many of which have since been repressed by either Group P or the Foundation. On to SCP-3341-B, which comes from the Order of Saint Militant Kainan, consisting of juvenile SCP-3341 instances affiliated with the Cogwork Orthodox Church. Thus, instead of the class system centered on its life cycle, societal hierarchy within SCP-3341-B mirrors the Cogwork Orthodox Church. Following the fall of the Derg regime in Ethiopia, the Cogwork Orthodox Church extended its sphere of influence to the in the Horn of Africa, and successfully converted multiple SCP-3341-B instances due to support from the Cogwork Orthodox Church. SCP-3341-B remains difficult to completely suppress and is given a distinct sub-designation. Adhering to a syncretic religion derived from SCP-3341-B mythology and Cogwork Orthodox Church theology, members of SCP-3341-B perceived Chick as an agent of the flesh, who entrapped SCP-3341 into physical bodies and metamorphosis as a means to further entrap the species. Conversely, Mekane is worshipped by SCP-3341-B as the means to acquire liberation from their trapped conditions. Thus, they would use mechanical enhancements to achieve spiritual completion instead of undergoing metamorphosis with suitable mate. Alright, yeah, so they do worship and are part of the Church of the Broken God. Alright, yeah. SCP-3341-B has aided in the Cogwork Orthodox Church's military operations in East Africa and other locations. As members of SCP-3341-B1 are unable to reproduce, raids on SCP-3341-B settlements are the former's primary means of recruitment. As of 2012, bisected human corpses were found in SCP-3341-B1 temples. Now on to the last one, SCP-3341-C. SCP-3341-C denotes from the socio-cultural group of SCP-3341 instances who traditionally reside in the Khuzestan province in Iran, formerly known as Arabistan or Awaz. Little is known of the nature of SCP-3341-C's version of its species creation myth, attributed to the lack of Foundation presence among SCP-3341-C. That being said, multiple recovered ORIA documents have claimed that SCP-3341 is a type of Takwin, which it says in the footnotes is a synthetic life created via alchemy, often stated to be one of the major goals of Muslim alchemists. So, I thought that ORIA was a Saudi Arabian organization, but it might have been from Iran. I don't. I still don't know. I don't know that much about the groups of interest. So in the case of SCP-3341-C, the role of community leaders is served by both adult SCP-3341-C instances and selected ORIA personnel. Recovered ORIA reports indicate that SCP-3341-C community leaders, both human and SCP-3341-C, are consistently termed as Type 2 Special Personnel, belonging to House Chick, speculated to be a clan of unknown origins. SCP-3341-C instances who adopt the role of community leaders appear to take on a temporary name, suggesting they might be adopted temporarily into House Chick. So, that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. I know I still sometimes mess up English words, but that's just what I do. Anyways, hope you guys have a nice day. See you in the next video.